Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 online action. Today we're back with the Warriors of Chaos, going to be taking on the Vampire Counts. Let's go ahead and get to the army compositions. As you can see, I've got Big Bird here. I like him in this matchup because he's unbreakable. He's also got some magic resistance. Lord of Metal is also pretty decent here. We've got Plague of Rust and Final Transmutation. Final Transmutation is going to be aimed at Lord Sniping or busting up big blobs. Plague of Rust, of course, good in almost any situation. Also got our Arcane Conduit and Stand or Die. In terms of the Infantry Corps, we've got a front line of Chaos Marauders backed up by some Chosen, 2 Shielded Chosen, and the Mirror Guard. We've also got the Weird Spawn in here for some additional armor sundering. I really like pairing the Weird Spawn with Big Bird because you get that Plague of Rust with the armor sundering from the Weird Spawn. You can tear off up to 90 armor, 60 to 90 armor on a specific unit. Very, very good for taking out high value stuff. We've also got the Summoners of Rage here, of course, with their elite anti-large armor piercing and their magic damage. Going to be very good against ethereal units. Frontline Vanguard of Marauder Horsemen. You don't really need the throwing axes, in my opinion, in this matchup because you don't need the shields, and generally the large units for the vampire counts tend to not have much armor. If we go ahead and take a look at the vampires themselves, going to be led by old Manfred von Karstein here. Good old Manfred with, let's see here, Master of the Black Arts, Dance Macabre, Invocation. He's also got Purple Sun, a lot of fun, and Unholy Sword, Sword of Unholy Power, that is, and the Hunger. He's got a unit of Blood Knights as a bodyguard, some Black Knights with Lances and Barding over on the far side. Infantry Corps is going to be Graveguard and Skeleton Spearmen to the flanks with some Crypt Horrors, and in the center, 2 units of Cairn Wraiths. He's also got 1 unit of Vargeist, actually the Devils of Schwarzhofen up in the air, who have been saying a bit more of lately. I'm still not super sold on them as a unit. Really haven't personally got them to pay out and haven't seen them pay out, but we'll see how they do here. Without further ado, let's get the battle into full gear. You can see I'm going to be moving up and immediately doing some skirmishing with the Marauder Javelins, and this is what I was saying with the Horsemen. You don't really need the throwing axes so much in this matchup, especially if you've got Big Bird, because the Vampire Counts only tend to bring a handful of units that really have high armor in terms of their high value units. Things like Knights obviously have high armor, Dragons, Lords on Dragons, and Terrorgeists, I don't remember, I think they have about 70 armor, which is, not terrible. But overall, you do have some options to sunder the armor, so I find that you don't typically need AP in this matchup. That goes for both the skirmishers and for the infantry. You can see I haven't brought any armor-piercing infantry, actually, just all sword and board in terms of the Marauders and the Chosen here. So, yeah, we're going to get the engagement underway. A little bit sloppy here, not quite pulling back my Marauders in time, but those Crypt Horrors are just about done. And ethereal units, I may have mentioned before in a previous game, are a huge risk now just because there are so many options for magic damage. Big Bird does magic damage. The Summoners of Rage also do magic damage here. You can see the Weird Spawn and the Mirror Guard rushing forward. Going to be crashing into the side here. I don't think the Weird Spawn do magic damage, do they? No, they do not. But they're going to get in here and just start to munch on these Graveguard down to only 60 armor. Black Knights trying to shoot the gap here. We've got the Summoners of Rage just kind of chilling in the back line, trying to protect these Marauders, who are currently doing a really nice amount of work firing at those Devils of Schwarzhofen. These Black Knights are going to get in here, but we're going to hook the Summoners of Rage over and get into the side. Summoners of Rage will just absolutely demolish these guys, no problem. The Marauders are going to have a pretty tough time in the front line, but overall we should be able to stabilize, especially with the Chosen. They're just going to cut through all these skeletons, and even the Graveguard, no problemo. They're very, very strong units. I really am liking the Sword and Board Chosen right now. You can see a massive Overcast Final Transmutation going down, hitting all the units in this pocket. Manfred cleaned up the Cairn Wraiths that were in this pocket just about, not quite actually, but doing a lot of damage to them. Cairn Wraiths do have relatively low unit models, so something like Final Transmutation will actually scale pretty well against them. You can see Manfred coming over with the Blood Knights trying to deal with Sarthrel. That's fine with me. We're going to drop a Plague of Rust on these Blood Knights here, and then bring in the Summoners of Rage, and also bring in some Marauder Horsemen to throw their javelins in from the backside. You can see, of course, because of that Plague of Rust in place, down to only 50 armor. Are they also sundered? Did we get the Weird Spawn over here too? Yeah, it looks like the Weird Spawn also over here. So only 50 armor on those Blood Knights, and they just get shredded by everything. Big Bird, the javelins, everything working together just destroyed those Blood Knights in a hurry. Blood Knights I have found to be a bit more cost effective. They are pretty expensive though, so you definitely have to babysit them a little bit. But if you go cheaper on on your lord choice. Like Manfred in this guy is probably not too expensive. He can definitely get you a lot of Winds of Magic as well, much more than any other vampire lord, but somebody like Heinrich Kemmler or, you know, Master Necromancer, somebody that's really cheap will allow you to bring more Blood Knights, and I think if you just try and overwhelm with a lot of heavy cavalry, it can definitely work out pretty well. The Cairn Wraiths obviously actually hang around until the late game here, but they're going to get just crapped on by these Summoners of Rage and Big Bird fighting in the same pocket. That's a lot of magic damage in melee. You can see at this point the leadership of the vampire count's just not holding up. Manfred, despite that upgraded invocation, just going to be disintegrating at this point. So yeah, very fun battle. A nice quick battle. We'll take a look at another one after this, just because that one is relatively quick, but did showcase a couple of things I'd been wanting to show off. Big Bird, just super strong in this matchup. Did take some damage, but also the magic damage is super strong. The fact that he's unbreakable, and Lore of Metal is pretty solid overall here. You can see the Cairn Race definitely did not pay out, and a little bit of an unfortunate circumstance for my opponent there. The Crypt Horrors also didn't really pay out. Same thing with the Devils of Schwarzhofen and the Knights too. I mean, the Black Knights did it alright. 88 kills, not too bad there. And my Marauders definitely suffered in the front line, but the Chosen, there was just really nothing that could cut through these Chosen with their massive melee defense. The Mirror Guard also did quite well. And just overall, my build countered what he brought almost perfectly. That being said, from the Vampire Count's perspective, I have played this one few times from the Vampire Count's perspective, and I would definitely say with the meta is right now, the way things are, Crypt Horrors are probably not the best bet. If I had to just quickly theory craft a list before we jump into the next battle here, just for those of you who are curious, because I know a lot of you do like it when I do this, kind of show you what I would do. Kemmler can be a pretty decent option here. Manfred's pretty solid as well. Vlad even can be pretty decent here because he's really hard to goon. The Red Duke, of course. But let's go ahead and build around Manfred, since that's what my opponent had brought in that battle here. We'll go ahead and cut most of these spells here. Doom and Darkness against Chaos might be useful. We're going to hang on to that for now. Purple Sun, that's tempting, but we're going to cut it actually just for cost's sake. We'll keep Invocation, Dance Macabre, and Raise Dead. Those three spells are staples for any Vampire Lord. Grab the whole Sword of Unholy Power. So Manfred coming in at about 2100 points as it is here. So let's actually grab two Blood Knights and the Varix Reavers. This is the main cavalry corps that you guys will see me run with quite a bit. And I'm not saying that you have to do this rigidly, but typically I find that the Varix Reavers in and of themselves are very cost effective with the regeneration. They can stick around until the late game if you micro them well. The Blood Knights themselves definitely can pay out, but you need to babysit them a little bit. What you'll want to do is go pretty wide with infantry at this point, so we're going to go ahead and tank up on some Skeleton Spearmen and some Skeleton Warriors just to kind of give some meat for our opponents to chew on. Corpse Cart with an Unholy Lodestone is almost always a good choice because it'll give you some regeneration and gives that excellent Vigor Mortis effect as well. So now you're starting to see a little bit more where I'm going with this. We're going to forego any ethereal units whatsoever just because the Chaos can bring a lot of magic damage to the table, so it's just not really worth it. They've got the Aspiring Champions, Summoners of Rage, Big Bird himself, a lot of direct magic damage as well with Lore of Death, Lore of Shadows, Metal, even Lore of Fire gives magic damage in an area of effect on melee attacks. So just in general, leave the ethereal units to the side. Generally in most matchups, I would say now, but especially against the Warriors of Chaos. After all, Chaos is magic. But yeah, something like this would be a pretty good base. You could obviously play around with some things from here. A Dire Pack might not be a bad idea to help chase down some Marauders with throwing axes or Marauders with javelins and or so on. You know, you've got a bit more cost here, so you could maybe grab a back line of Graveguard, maybe you grab the Sternsman and one more unit of Graveguard. Yeah, I mean, something like this would be pretty solid. You guys will see me run builds pretty similar to this with the Vampire Counts typically, but yeah, just overall, I think the ethereal units are too big of a risk to really be justifiable, and yeah, you want to probably go with more of a heavy cavalry focus. The heavy cavalry is actually pretty good for the Warriors of Chaos right now. Of course, you could always cut these guys and go with a classic double Terrorgeist build. That's still totally viable in a lot of matchups, so this particular build, I would say, lacks a terror option, so you may want to cut Doom and Darkness, or else alternately you could bring, we're one point short of Aspect of Dread Knight. That is a little bit triggering, so before anyone loses their mind, let's go to the next battle here, and yeah, we're gonna watch another quick one here. This is gonna be the green skins against the high elves here, and again, just wanted to kind of showcase something that definitely does not work on ladder, especially against the green skins. Green skins right now are a very strong faction. I think people are starting to kind of learn, you know, where they come in and do different things and some of their strengths. My opponent here has gone with a very missile-focused build. Lots of Lothern Sea Guard, but there's just nothing to protect. It's a very small army, and these Lothern Sea Guard, while they are pretty decent archers, they're going to get crapped on in melee. The Storm Riders do have really good melee defense at 56. They're comparable to a unit of High Elf Spearmen in terms of their combat stats, but they are significantly more expensive. So this one's, as you can see from the timer, is going to be very, very quick. Just wanted to throw this one in here as a, you know, a bit of a PSA. Definitely, you don't want to try this against the greenskins. Yeah, it's going to be a rough time. The High Elves are going to try and fire away here. Tyrion up front, you know, doing his thing there, but this Lore Master of Hoeth as well, leading the Scions of Mathlon. You can see the Wa popping off on all sides. In terms of the build, we're not going to go over it super in-depth. I might look at it briefly afterwards, but mostly I just want to soak up some cinematics of elves getting run over by by orcs here. So you saw that Brain Burst to go off. That's going to proc the Bonewood Staff. Brain Burst is actually pretty good against low armor units, and a lot of factions, particularly the elf factions, tend to bring a lot of high-value, low armor units, so you can get some really good value from Brain Burst. You can see the Phoenix Guard running in here, but there's just not enough to protect. These Lothern Sea Guard in the back line are getting just munched on. And Savage Orc Biggins, when you get that Wa going, we've also got the Eerie Go now that that's dropped, and of course the Bonewood Staff also going to be popping off every time we cast a spell here, so it's just such a strong ability. Wurrzag is super strong right now. We've got Effigy to get going down. Ooh, not quite. I thought we were. But another Brain Burster going off on the side there on that Lothern Sea Guard. Again, popping that Bonewood Staff all across the board here. And man, these nasty Skulkers with the Fists of Gork as well with magic damage. Look at their stats. They're just cutting up these Phoenix Guards. So, oh man, the greenskins are just so strong right now. And nasty Skulkers in particular up against the appropriate armored infantry. If you can get, you know, a good engagement where you get that Fists of Gork, maybe you get the Wa initially, throw in that Fist of Gork after it wears off, and keep that Bonewood Staff up as long as possible. They'll pretty decisively win. I didn't quite catch the whole engagement, but I'm pretty sure those nasty Skulkers just went one-on-one more or less with those Phoenix Guards, so just goes to show the power of the greenskin magic right now, and I love the change to Wa. I think it's super thematic and lore-friendly. It reminds me very much, and I've said this before, but the Swaby Fast Charge from Rome 2. I forget, I think it was the Vercingetorix general that had that ability, but the greenskin Wa now kind of reminds me of that. Just gives a huge map-wide speed and charge bonus buff, and yeah, for my opponent there, like I said, not the most high-level gameplay, certainly not to bag on my opponent, but yeah, you definitely need more meat for the greenskins to chew on. How would I go about? Generally, I think the greenskins do still have a little bit of an edge in this matchup, just because the Wa mechanic is so strong. How would I go about countering greenskins with the High Elves? So this build is going to look pretty familiar to what you guys have seen, before for me with the High Elves, but we're going to come in here, and you can either grab Alariel or Teclis. Alariel is a bit safer in terms of being immune to Goon, because you can bring her up in the air with Tempest if your opponent brings Azag. And one of you was saying the Stave of Averlord actually decreases the cost of Earthblood. Let me... we'll have to go into a custom battle briefly and check that, but... I don't know if I'll have time today. This video is already getting about 15 minutes long, but I'll check that out on another day, and we'll see, because I know it does in campaign, but if that does in multiplayer as well, that could potentially be very strong. I do want to look into some of the other items and legendary lords, because someone was mentioning a while back that they had different spell costs in multiplayer, so I wanted to kind of do some investigation and see if that is the case. But anyway, in terms of Alariel's spell loadout, I personally would take Banishment, maybe Tempest is more of an insurance policy. You may not always want to take it, but Arcane Unforging is definitely a good call, especially if you can get that Arcane Unforging off before the Greenskin Lord pops Wa, because it'll give a 30-second ability recharge, but they have to be in melee to recharge it, so you're going to basically prevent them from getting the Wa off on the charge if you can get this Arcane Unforging on the Greenskin Lord right at the start. So I would definitely recommend bringing a caster that has Arcane Unforging. You know, if you want to bring either a Lithanar, you know, a Dragon Lord, maybe Tyrion, then you bring a high mage, or else you bring a Lariel. Teclis definitely still has a place here, but it lacks the Arcane Unforging, and I think that ability in particular is going to be very strong at helping prevent the Wa from popping off right at the start, because the Greenskin Lord will have to get into melee for 30 seconds before he can pop the Wa, right? So I would highly recommend bringing Arcane Unforging regardless of the build you bring. Faw's Protection is another one that relatively cheap, only 5 wins of magic, gives some extra melee defense and armor, can be very useful to cast on something like a Spearman that's trying to hold the line, and it also triggers the map-wide Shield of Saffrey and Life Bloom both, so that can be a pretty decent pick as well, but I sometimes cut it just for cost reasons, because Alariel already is relatively expensive. But then, similar to builds you've seen me take before, I'd recommend going heavy on the cavalry, and again, this does take some micro skill, but it's just the way that I think the High Elves have to play certain matchups. I really don't think it's viable to go the skirmish route against the Greenskins, because they're one of the most effective swarm factions. They also, you know, can do a lot of different things in terms of buffing up their own troops. They're very strong in the front line. They do somewhat lack leadership, so it may be worth bringing a cheap terror-causing unit. Like, you may want to even go ahead and cut one of these Illyrian Reaver Archers. We'd have to find a little bit of cost somewhere to be able to afford it, but I'm thinking the Frostheart Phoenix here, if we could find another 100 points somewhere, then maybe we could afford that Frostheart Phoenix. But oh man, there's really not much I want to cut here. Maybe I cut the Shieldstone of Isha, although it's such a powerful ability. I mean, we're really kind of splitting hairs here, but in order to actually afford a terror-causing monster, it may be worth. The Flamespire Phoenix also, of course, has a Flaming Phoenix Feces, which is very good against low armor targets. Things like Savage Orcs, Savage Orc Biggins, going to be very strong at blowing them up. So something like this, I think, could be potentially very strong against the Greenskins. You guys will have to let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, but definitely the Arcane Unforging, I highly recommend you take that spell if you can with the High Elves, or even with the Lizardman. You know, you could take a High Slon, and the High Slon's not a bad option. I've actually got a replay with that guy I'm going to be showing off relatively soon as well. But yeah, the Arcane Unforging, if you can pop that on the Greenskin Lord before the engagement gets underway, it can be a very powerful ability. So I hope you guys enjoyed this quick double cast. Not the most high-level gameplay, but I'm going to be out of town next week, so I'm trying to get all my videos pre-recorded. I'm not sure exactly when you guys are going to be seeing this particular video, but I am just pre-recording a bunch of stuff, so I haven't had the time to play as many games as I would like. Therefore, you know, it's not necessarily going to be the most high-level gameplay per se, but I'll try and get some more games showcasing these concepts for you soon. If I can get a High Elf versus Greenskin game where I show off that Arcane Unforging, I'll definitely bring it to you. But anyway, stay tuned for more. Thank you very much for watching. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button, all that jazz. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.